The one and only Gary Buechler is on. Nerdrotic is what he is known as, and he has been hysterical on the new Star Wars series from Disney Plus called The Acolyte. I haven't seen it, but I have heard about it, and I have heard my friends talking about Gary and his conversations on it. Disney is actually blaming him for the loss of credibility on that new space thriller of the space lesbian witches. And YouTube has actually dinged him and is giving him strikes because he's a hate monger, because he doesn't like the lesbian witches in space. Gary, you're here to answer for yourself, brother. What's happening?
I'm here to answer for my sins against Disney. Yeah. Thank you for having me on, Glenn.
Yeah.
and that is happening to it's random, but it's happening to a lot of YouTubers and commentators. And I'm not sure if you're aware, the star Amandla Stenberg yesterday released a diss track against Star Wars fans, and she is copyright claiming and dinging everybody on YouTube and X as well for her blatant attack on the Star Wars fandom, which is always, just a great strategy that's, by the way, never worked.
Yeah, I know. It's really great. Look, I'm a star of this new show from, just this legacy that have been loved for 50 years. And I'm a big Star Wars fan, but all the Star Wars fans, they really suck a lot. They're crazy. They don't know, talent when they see it. They don't know a good storyline. Yeah, that's the way to attract those loyal viewers every single time. I saw the Rotten Tomatoes. The experts tell us that it's absolutely fantastic. 84%. Mm-hmm. The average audience score is 14.
That's a bit high.
Tell me
in
a little
my opinion.
Yeah.
So
tell us the story first. What is the story?
The story of the Acolyte is, as you said, there is a coven of lesbian space witches who magically conceived identical twins without a father through a power of not the Force, the thread. By the way, somebody needs to call Darth Povich because the twins don't look anything like mom. They don't have horns. And they were split up at the age of it was like 8 or 9. And they haven't seen each other for 16 years, yet they have identical haircuts.
Really? What are the odds of the haircut thing? Really? That's crazy.
Well, a good hairstylist keeps her secrets. So obviously she isn't telling either one that they're going to the same one. But
so before we get into more of the lesbian space witch thing, which I think America and the world's been crying out for a very long time, tell me who is in charge of this disaster in space. Who did they get to run this?
Former personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein, Leslie Headland, is the head writer on this show. Yeah, I know. It's shocking that somehow somebody connected to Harvey Weinstein can get work.
Yeah. I would think they would be in the Federal Witness Protection Program myself, but they might even turn them down. So she found work after being the personal assistant, so the one that was lining up all of the, hotel room meetings and everything else. She's now the head writer of the lesbian space witch show.
She is. I think the term is Judas Goat. I think that's she got a job by begging for it on the red carpet when she was famously asked, "What's your favorite Star Wars?" And she said, "All the Star Wars," obviously not knowing a single thing about it. Later, she's come out and claimed that she does, and she's written this entire story that not only passed the Bechdel test, it passes any DEI requirement with flying colors, for lack of a better description. But
go ahead.
Oh, ultimately, it's the story, Glenn. What Disney loves to do is conflate whatever happens on Twitter and any kind of complaints with like real criticisms of this show. And ultimately, despite all the obvious quote unquote diversity, which is just meant to exclude white men. Let's be real, and it's just a bad story that destroys the lore, and that's what Star Wars fans are mad about. It goes back into the past, and it undercuts Anakin, his entire redemptive arc, the specialness of Anakin and the prophecy. And every time they release another minute of Disney Star Wars, I can't even call it Star Wars, it's Disney Star Wars, on D+, it destroys more lore, and that's what the fans are upset about. The thing is, this has been going on for years, Glenn. This is you can take it all the way back to The Force Awakens, and it seems to come to a head on this show for some reason, when I think it probably could have come to a head 6 other times.
But why this one? I mean, have they just been like, you know what? We've tried subtly to kill this thing. Let's just finally kill it.
Right. They found a way to kill something again. It's pretty amazing. I would argue that the Obi-Wan Kenobi show was much worse as far as destroying lore. Obi-Wan was his sole purpose was to watch Luke, and they had a show where he takes off on Luke twice, follows around a little baby Princess Leia who never mentions meeting him as a kid, and fights Darth Vader twice. So it really shouldn't surprise anybody, but I guess this show is... But this would equate it... Oh, go on.
No, I'm sorry. We have a delay, and I forget. I'm so excited to talk to you about this. I never thought I would be in a position of defending midi-chlorians, but this one kind of throws all of that out, right?
It kind of does. I personally am not a fan of midi-chlorians and never will be, but
right.
I absolutely hate it. But like, I guess Disney Star Wars has proven things can always get worse, and the biggest victory comes with the prequels. Like, the prequels are now looked at much more fondly than they were before, thanks to every bit of Disney Star Wars Lucasfilm has created. But with this show in particular, it's just hit the zeitgeist because I would equate it to the Marvels from last year. It was just so predictably bad, and then it still beat our very lowered expectations of how bad it would be. And it's a show, if you see it, it's contradictory. You have characters contradicting each other. None of it actually makes any sense. For storytelling wise, you spend your first 2 episodes establishing a character, then you go into a flashback for an entire episode that really doesn't tell you anything new. And then the last episode was 27 minutes long without, previously on in credits, and nothing happens. Absolutely nothing happens. Oh, and by the way, Glenn, it cost $180 million to produce. Oh my gosh.
What has happened to Disney? I mean, besides all of the DEI crap, the greatest storytelling company ever cannot seem to tell a story anymore.
No, they are creative bankruptcy personified now. And they were on the top when Bob Iger decided to buy a bunch of franchises, and everybody was calling him this massive genius when he just went on a shopping spree and never bothered looking into what it takes to cultivate these franchises and keep them around, what it took to keep them around for decades. It's not being talked about as much, but they have a Doctor Who show that they are now in charge of running along with Acolyte, and it's a race to the bottom with both of these.
I love Doctor Who, and
so do I.
When did Disney buy into Doctor Who? I hate the BBC, but how did the BBC even let that happen?
Well, they're about to cancel it because the first female doctor, played by Jodie Whittaker, by the way, wasn't a hit like they suspected. And
what a surprise!
Yeah, what a shock. So they decided to bring back Russell T Davies, who had brought the show back in 2005, and it was extremely good and popular. And it's just proof you can't go home again. And how much has changed in entertainment, Glenn? Post 2016, you have the guy who originally brought it back, made it a worldwide sensation, making some of the worst Doctor Who now. And of course, it's filled with things like pronouns. And we had, it's not even the first like male kiss, gay kiss in Doctor Who, but they gave this one to the Doctor and made it more prominent with the first black gay Doctor. And that's they're in this trap now. Instead of giving the fans what they want and just making good entertainment, they have to abide. But and the BBC started this much earlier on, back in 2012. They had the Diversity and Inclusion Initiative, which is all the DEI stuff, and it prevents them from telling a good story. They have so many rules on themselves. So with the corporatism, to go back to Disney, with the corporatism, they really can't take chances anymore. And this even goes beyond woke entertainment. They just need to have this built-in audience to spend money on anything, and in my opinion, overspend. And what makes things insane is they paid so much money for this built-in audience that they immediately decide to piss off, not only with their storytelling, they come out and gaslight the fandom with a term that's a real term called fan baiting, which is to start controversies online so people are talking about their show. And again, I haven't seen an example of this ever working, but they've been doing it now for 7 or 8 years.
So we're talking to Gary Buechler about Nerdrotic, and he is Nerdrotic Online. We're talking about the new Disney show. They admitted that they had a secret gay agenda, and I really don't care. I mean, I really don't care. But God, stop preaching to us and stop trying to make it look like the whole universe is, lesbian space witches, because it just ain't. It's just not. And I used to think that George Lucas was the biggest problem to Star Wars because he would always introduce things like Jar Jar Binks. And you'd be like, oh, geez. But at least he cared about the story. At least the story of the Force was consistent and it built on each other. Not anymore.
No, not anymore. This was a basic story of good versus evil, and it doesn't work in the modern nihilist times that we're in, where, it's gray and the Jedi are bad. George was a genius. George is at the top of his craft. There'll never be anything like him again. Was he the best storyteller? No, he actually had a lot of help with the original trilogy.
Yeah. Not
much help with the prequels, but he still, when he's putting in half the effort, he's better than everybody in Hollywood. And he's looking much better nowadays too. Unfortunately, he backed Iger with Nelson Peltz, and because he's an old man, right? He's in his 80s. He doesn't want to rock the boat. He's made a lot of money off this Disney deal, a lot of money. But Disney doesn't understand Star Wars, never will. And more importantly, they don't understand Star Wars fans, and they actively hate them, which is kind of
I don't think
undercurrent. Oh, sorry.
No, I don't think they understand anybody. I really don't. I don't think they understand their own Disney fans, the children and the families. They don't understand any of it. They act as though they do hate them.
Because they do. And forgive me, this isn't Glenn's fault. This is my first radio interview. So I apologize, and thanks for having me on, Glenn. They hate the fans, and they actively hate Star Wars, and they're now calling the fans racist and bigots for pointing out inconsistencies in lore. Like normal fan stuff that fans have done forever and will do forever. And that's like Hollywood's having a very hard time in the social media era. We've seen the death of the movie star, and quite frankly, it's because we got to know them. And now it's based on properties, right? And they don't want to take the time to understand these properties. And you can't use the old model of, we can just change stuff and nobody's going to care. No, a lot of people always cared. Now you're going to hear about it a lot. And you have to you have to figure this out or you're going down.
Gary, thank you so much for talking to us. He's one of the largest pop culture voices on YouTube and social media. And the establishment, Disney and everybody, seems to be afraid of his voice because he's just speaking the truth that we all know.